Thank you very much for all coming. We've got a really interesting panel here, and I'm pleased to have been asked by the Chamber to moderate the panel. I've worked with a lot of the organizations here in the past, and look forward to hearing what they have to say about and to talk about their agencies and their programs. And we just wanted it to be really informative and for businesses that want to do trade and investments in Asia or into the U.S. from Asia. And then we'll talk about some other things that they do to collaborate together and to help companies in these markets. So I thought we'd start out with Verinder Fike. I've known Verinder for many years. My firm does consulting work mostly in emerging markets for infrastructure projects, and I actually used to work with USTDA, and that's, since then, that was probably 15 years ago, worked closely with TDA. It's a great agency, and Verinder's been there since 2010. She's worked in over 50 countries, including in Asia, Africa, Middle East, and Europe. And I just TDA, as I said, TDA is a great agency. It's small but very has a very high profile, and I saw that they just announced that they've supported close to $120 billion in U.S. exports since the start of the agency's work. So with that, Verinder, if you can say a few words about your work and the tools and resources you have that could be relevant for folks.
Thanks, Doug, and thanks to the AACC for having me join this summit. So as Doug mentioned, I'll just start off with a few tools and information on what our agency does. We are a relatively small government agency, part of the federal government. And I do feel like with our agency, to know us really is to love us. And I think once U.S. companies find out about the services and the tools that we offer, a lot of enthusiasm in working with us. So hoping to make those connections with you all today. So USTDA is the project preparation arm of the U.S. government. So we are coming in at the early phases of project design to provide grant funding for feasibility studies, for technical assistance, for pilot projects, really whatever is needed to make a bankable project, to attract the right financiers. We also have a goal of connecting U.S. firms to those infrastructure opportunities in emerging markets. So we do have this dual mandate of doing international development assistance through our grant funds, but we have a dual mandate of supporting U.S. firms and companies in those infrastructure projects. And as Doug just alluded to, we had a record-breaking year in several years. So for every $1 that we program, we see about $231 back in U.S. exports. So our money is not tied. Our grant assistance does not require that a U.S. solution must be procured if we're coming in at those early planning stages. But we are very good at it, and we are, looking at opportunities where we know U.S. companies are highly competitive. And for USTDA, those sectors include clean energy, digital infrastructure, transportation, which includes surface transportation and aviation, as well as healthcare and to some degree agribusiness as well. We are active in any emerging market globally. I'm the director for the Indo-Pacific region, and so we're active from Pacific Islands to South Asia through Southeast Asia, and we've done over 700 projects in the Asia geography. We are also work with both small and large U.S. companies, so we're really trying to open doors for U.S. companies and really trying to de-risk at the earliest stage of infrastructure design. We know that infrastructure requires a lot of investment, and oftentimes it's that planning piece that is very difficult for both our partners in the region as well as U.S. companies to offer their assistance or to provide that kind of funding. So we are really de-risking those upfront costs, and we're trying to level the playing field too. We know that infrastructure and the U.S. companies working in this space are facing very fierce competition, and our studies that we do also show the life cycle cost analysis that goes into an infrastructure decision and a procurement decision. So for instance, if we're looking at a clean energy project, the procurement decision makers may want to look for the lowest cost solution, but we really show through the life cycle cost of the project that going with a US solution that might seem more costly upfront is actually going to be built to last and save you money in the long term. So that is part of every one of our studies as well. So that's our project preparation tools that we offer. We also do a number of partnership building events, and we host a number of reverse trade missions from across the globe to the United States, where we introduce a overseas delegation to a particular technology. And it really is an opportunity for US companies who may not want to travel to some of these hard to reach places to meet with buyers that are interested in a particular technology. So on average, our agency hosts over 60 of these types of delegations to the US. We have many coming up over the next couple of months and then through next year. I know just in 2 weeks' time we'll be hosting a delegation from the Pacific Islands that's interested in port sector technologies, including environmental technologies, security technologies. So they'll be in the US for a couple of weeks. We, right after that, have a delegation from Indonesia looking at smart city technology, as Indonesia, as many of you know, they're moving their entire capital city from Jakarta to Nusantara on the island of Borneo. And we are introducing them to US company solutions to help them with that process. We also have, in January, several reverse trade missions focused on clean energy, delegation from India. Throughout the year, we'll have smart grid delegations from Vietnam and the Philippines and Indonesia as well. So lots of opportunity to engage. The best way to find out about those opportunities is really to sign up for TDA's newsletter. We send on a bi-weekly basis. We try not to overwhelm your inbox with that. But all of these visits are also posted on our website, and I'm happy to provide more information on that as well. In addition to that, we do host a number of workshops in country. We just earlier this week, in fact, hosted a workshop in the Philippines focused on the healthcare sector. And then we do large conferences as well, including the Indo-Pacific Business Forum, which I know Doug helped out with on last year. This year's forum will be in Manila, likely in March of next year, and we're welcoming all delegations and interested participants to attend. Finally, I'll just mention one tool that may be of interest to this group as well. In addition to these larger feasibility studies and these larger value grants that USTDA offers, one of the ways that we work very closely with small US companies is through our desk study and definitional mission contracts. And Doug likewise has partook on many of those contracts as well. And that's a great gateway to work with USTDA for potentially larger opportunities in the future and kind of get your foot in the door with our agency. And what these contracts are is essentially technical experts who can advise USTDA on whether funding for a feasibility study makes sense, helping to draft the terms of reference for the study, creating the budget for that study. For our definitional mission contracts, it does allow the contractor to travel to the region to meet with our stakeholders and to build out, to give a recommendation to our agency of whether it is something that USTDA should fund given our criteria.
Sorry, can you please repeat the name of that program?
Absolutely, and if you're having trouble hearing me, I can also use the microphone, so apologies.
You're fine. I think I just missed it.
Okay, it's called our desk study and definitional missions. So a desk study is you're basically at the desk, so it does not require travel. We actually have in terms of reference and a budget, we have partners in mind, and we just need an outside third-party review essentially to give that recommendation to USTDA. And the definitional missions does require travel to the region and meeting with partners and scoping out what the design of the study would look like, scoping out the terms of reference and designing the budget to match what the feasibility study or the pilot or technical assistance may need. So those are really great opportunities. The contract value really ranges from on the very low end, like for around 30,000, and then on the higher end, up to 600,000 if it requires a lot of travel and that kind of defining this and scoping for USTDA. So again, happy to answer more questions on that. I know USTDA, in terms of the federal government benchmarks for working with both minority-owned and women-owned and small-owned businesses, we're far ahead of the curve because of these smaller contracts that enabled us to engage with those types of U.S. companies here in the States. So definitely happy to answer more questions and provide more information if you're interested in those tools. So I think I'm at my time, and I know we'll dive into more examples later, but I'm happy to pass it back to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Ms. Van Lee, who's the investment counselor at the Embassy of Vietnam here in Washington, D.C. She's a former Deputy Director General of the Vietnam Foreign Investment Agency and has led a number of task force and working groups promoting foreign investment in Vietnam. And she worked for over 25 years at the Ministry of Planning Investment in Vietnam. I had the pleasure of doing a study which supported MPI in Vietnam, along with Sean and his firm. And I've worked in Vietnam a number of times, and in addition to being a phenomenal place to travel, just a great place to work also. And I hope to be working there again soon. So I guess, and obviously the U.S.-Vietnamese relationship economically and otherwise just keeps getting stronger. So with that, if you can talk about some of the programs that you have to support trade and investment between the two countries.
Thank you, Joe, for very nice introduction, and good afternoon, everybody here. It's my great honor to be here to introduce to you what we can offer for promote trade and investment between the two countries. So, as you may know that last month on 10th of September, General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng of Vietnam and the President Joe Biden announced a joint leader statement of elevating the national relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. So the two leaders reaffirmed that the importance of economic trade and investment, cooperation and innovation-driven inclusive economic growth as a core foundation and the source of momentum in the bilateral relationship. So both sides pledged to create a favorable condition and facilitate the further opening of market for each other, and support trade and policy and economic policy and regulation measures to achieve this aim. So in terms of trade, Vietnam is currently the 7th largest partner of the U.S. And U.S. is the largest exporting partner of Vietnam. And in terms of investment, U.S. investor in Vietnam rank number 11, around nearly 150 partners already in Vietnam. And also the Vietnamese investment in the U.S. So U.S. is the top 10 of Vietnamese investment abroad. So we committed to support and facilitate trade and investment between the two countries, and we believe that we are in a very good position now, and we have enough resources to promote trade and investment between the two countries. We are the embassy in a very good relation with lots of business community in the U.S. And business association as well as in Vietnam. So we can help to facilitate business matching or make any connection between U.S. and Vietnamese firms. We are also in a good relation with politics and congressmen in both sides to support different kinds of business concerns and interest for policy formation or to implement the policy of both countries. The embassy could facilitate trade and investment mission from both sides. We can organize trade and investment events from the national or the federal level to the provincial or at the state level to have doing business. We can have to arrange group of or private meetings with targeted partners. We can have a meeting with policymakers or decision-making people. So a wide range of activities that we could support for business men. We also welcome business community to come to us to share your success, your concern, your interest, and any problem. And we are willing to work with you to find out the solution, and we consider the success is our success. So just come to us to share story and to tell us your plan to do business in US or in Vietnam. And also for Vietnamese trader or investor, we have the national program to promote trade and investment as well, to help Vietnamese trader and investor to do business abroad, to bring them to the US. Thank you for.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the introduction. Did you have a question?
Well, when I heard you talk about we can have a group meeting in the embassy where how can I find out all that? Because I'm interested in Vietnam.
Oh, so please contact me and discuss with me your plan to do in Vietnam, so we can help you to arrange any kind of meeting that you would request. So, yeah.
You mean like contact with the embassy or?
Yeah.
Helen? Oh, yeah, there it is. We have to get close to it, I guess. Yeah, I should have asked in the beginning. I thought everyone could hear us, so thanks. Well, so thank you very much. So I guess next I'd like to turn to April Redmond. She's the director for the U.S. Commercial Service for Virginia and Washington, D.C. And she has over 25 years with the Department of Commerce and oversees a team assisting small and medium enterprises getting into the international marketplace and increasing their global presence. I've worked with April's office in the past to help when we do some USTDA missions and use the acts of the U.S. Export Assistance Centers across the U.S. and they're an invaluable resource. So looking forward to hearing April and talk about some of your resources.
Thank you so much, Doug. It's really great to be here today. I just want to thank the AACC for inviting us, and I hope, excuse me, I hope many of you had a chance to listen to our Deputy Assistant Secretary this morning in her keynote remarks. But the key thing I want to leave you with today is you have a lot of resources to support your business in looking at international markets in trade and investment. Not just the people here on the panel, but I'm looking around the room and I see Jonathan Brady from Exim Bank and so many other people here, my colleague Pompeia from my office. We're here to support you. And at the U.S. Commercial Service, we're part of the U.S. Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration. We have 106 offices nationwide to support your businesses in exporting. So my office is one of two in Virginia. We have one in Arlington and one in Richmond. We have an office in Baltimore, Maryland that covers Maryland. We have offices in Pennsylvania and the Carolinas. So you have people on the ground, trade specialists that work in your industry sectors that are able to meet with you one-on-one, come out and see your place of business, come out and meet you where you're at, and help you develop an international business plan, help you meet potential partners, agents, distributors, end users, joint venture partners overseas. And we can connect you to not just our services at the Department of Commerce, but we can connect you to Exim Bank, we can connect you to TVA, we can connect you to your state and local governments that are there to support you. If you're in Virginia, for example, we do work very closely with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and they have actual grants that they can give you to help support your export activities. And so we work in partnership with our state, local, and federal partners. We're on the ground getting to know your place, your businesses, and what you're trying to accomplish, what your objectives are. And we have offices in our U.S. embassies and consulates overseas, the commercial sections of those embassies, that are on the ground getting to know the buyers, the agents, the distributors, the ministry officials, so that we can do a good job of matchmaking your business with the opportunity and with the partner overseas. And we do that through helping you with market research, trade counseling, We can set up meetings for you, MS Teams meetings, so you can talk virtually with our team at the U.S. embassies and consulates and get market advice, get market strategy, insights into what you're trying to do. And then we can help you find potential partners. So we can actually set up meetings for you with end users and with buyers and with partners to help you basically utilize the power and the cachet of the U.S. Embassy in that market to open the doors with the key decision makers. So this can be really, really helpful, and you'll have somebody right there on the ground with you, setting up your meetings, going with you if you want to those meetings, and following up with you on those meetings. We also provide extensive support at trade shows overseas in almost every industry sector. We take trade missions. As you can see here, the Deputy Assistant Secretary talked this morning about trade winds. There are flyers on the tables here. That's the largest U.S. government trade mission that will be going to Turkey next spring in May of 2024, with mission spin-off stops in Italy, Denmark, Kazakhstan, Poland, and Romania, where we'll have all of our European senior commercial officers at our diplomats, our trade diplomats from the U.S. embassies and consulates in Europe, come to Turkey to the Anchor Conference and have one-on-one meetings with all of the trade forum participants, where you can actually sign up for 30-minute meetings with the senior commercial officers to get market insights and advice on their countries and what the potential is for your product or service. And then you can leave that conference after getting all those insights and go to a spin-off country for one-on-one meetings. So again, we take about 150 U.S. businesses on these conferences on the TradeWinds mission. Would really encourage you to take a look. The QR code there will give you all of the information. But we do so many other trade missions, so many other webinars and opportunities. And I think just the takeaway for you is you don't necessarily need to know who to contact in the government for help. If it's relating to trade, reach out to me, reach out to Pompeia, grab my business card, and contact us, because we can make sure that you're connected to Exim Bank, TDA, SBA, the state and local resources, and make sure that we're working as a team to support you. So I think I'm going to end my comments there, and I look forward to more discussion.
Excellent. Thank you so much, April. I can say, having worked overseas a lot with the embassies, that the partner search, that they do in the commercial, with the commercial service and the embassies around the world is just an invaluable tool in getting into a new market. I remember when I was working in Africa, and there's this huge opportunities in Nigeria, and everyone wants to try to capture them, but it's a very, very challenging market, similar to some of the economies in Asia. And that was what I think was what a lot of the commercial service did, was to help people find trustworthy, reliable partners, and it was really an invaluable service. So Alex Miller is an investment consultant for the U.S. Department of Commerce's Select USA program, and he's a portfolio manager for China, Korea, and Southeast Asia. And this is the program that focuses on facilitating business investment into the U.S. And I noticed that they've facilitated, since their inception, over $190 billion in investments. So TDA's got a little catching up to. Close. So Alex, can you please tell us about your programs?
Thanks, Doug, and also really glad to be here to speak with all of you. The great thing about Select USA is that it has a very specific remit. It's just to encourage foreign direct investment into the United States to create jobs for U.S. citizens. But it also focuses, hearing a lot about, how U.S. businesses trying to go overseas and, try to find, it's very difficult to navigate that environment. A lot of times, the U.S. market can be as mysterious for a lot of companies as well. So a lot of the things that we try to do, like you say, is almost demystify the U.S. market for foreign companies. And we primarily do this with three ways. Our first thing is sort of, it's very similar, because also April and I, we're all under the same umbrella as the International Trade Administration, so the service we offer are quite similar. But a primary service we offer is market research, and we have a great team solely dedicated to research. Our research team based in Select USA HQ here in DC, and they provide you a custom U.S. locations and resources report. So let's say you're thinking about expanding in the United States, or you're looking to enter the United States for the first time, and you have no idea where to start. Maybe you have certain criteria you're looking for, maybe you're looking for wages for a certain state, maybe you're looking for certain clusters of where other similar companies are located, maybe utility costs. You could even check for logistics information. We have a research team that's solely dedicated to provide bespoke custom reports for you, free of charge. It's a free service that we do, typically with a 2-week turnaround, and we find that clients always use the supplement in terms of their market entry decision making at the end. Another thing that we do, very similar to what April mentioned, is sort of the kind of matchmaker, almost a telephone operator of sorts in a way, particularly once you have that report, you're looking to connections for a certain state. Let's say you're very interested in Virginia, for example, and like similar to April's team, the UCX there, we can also facilitate those connections as well with the appropriate partners, be it the states or local partners, particularly because as much as the federal government likes to believe we know a lot of the answers for a lot of these things, each state has different rules, regulations, each county does, each city does. So it's very difficult for certain companies to find out what's the appropriate person to contact. So we're trying to sort of demystify that process for people as well. And thirdly, going up macro again, the federal landscape. A lot of companies are unsure whether they're eligible for certain legislation, like with the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. These are sweeping landmark legislation. And a lot of companies are wondering, am I even eligible for these services? It's like a lot of money going out. I feel like we should be able to participate in this in some way. And we have, through our interagency working group, connections with both the Department of Energy, the Department of Treasury, looking at the Inflation Reduction Act, looking at the CHIPS office, which is actually housed within the Department of Commerce as well. And we look to connect companies that may be interested in learning more about these programs with the appropriate points of contact within different departments. So I also know, cautious of time, but those were the 3 big things I also want to conclude with. I'm very fortunate to grow up in Southeast Asia. I spent 17 years of my life in Malaysia and Indonesia, and I can also attest, visiting quite often, that there is quite zeal and energy to invest into the United States. I can also testify for Ms. Von Lee mentioned the Vietnamese investment. I can see firsthand the interest in Vietnamese companies to invest in the United States, obviously VinFast being the big one. So again, it's a very exciting time to invest in the United States, not just from the typical expect the European companies, by seeing the energy and enthusiasm from Southeast Asian countries and Asian countries as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Alex. So, as I said, I had the pleasure of working with the government before, and so I know a lot of these agencies. And a lot of these agencies, I mean, everyone did a great job of explaining what they do, but it can also be a little bit mysterious for people, how the agencies work together and what exactly they do. And so I thought maybe what I'd ask next is if you can just give a sort of a concrete example of someone using your tool, a U.S. company using your tool, or an investor into the U.S., and how that worked and what was really.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Doug. So I'll give an example of IMSG, IM Systems Group, and I don't know if Sean or if IMSG is in the room, but I know they're running around the conference. But this is an Asian-owned, now woman-owned company that USDA has worked with for many years. And I'll just give a couple examples of how they started off working with us and how we're working with them now. So IMSG did start off working on these smaller desk study contracts that I had alluded to earlier, providing that technical expertise to USTDA as an outside technical expert on ICT and transportation and some of the great work that they do. And writing those reports for USTDA. They also took advantage of our IQC contract for logistical arrangements, which I know Doug and his firm are a part of as well. And we do have an indefinite quantity contractor pool that we pull from to do logistics for events, much like this summit, and to pull together those logistics. So IMSG also had participated previously as a contractor for USTDA to do that. Now the way that we're working with them, which is really exciting, is to do a full-on pilot project and feasibility study in Vietnam to look at weather forecasting. IMSG has a great partnership with NOAA and has developed really advanced software to help with that weather analytics and the prediction analysis needed to help airports better, assess for actual arrival times for airplanes as they are approaching, and to better assess the weather events, which we know because of climate change is becoming more and more impactful in the region. So IMSG will be working on that feasibility study and that pilot project, and there's Sean, he will be part of that team. And I understand Doug is working on that project along with IMSG as well. So just a concrete example of the way that a company has worked with us throughout the years and then directly engaging through our grant assistance for this pilot project and feasibility study, working in the country of Vietnam and the Civil Aviation Authority of Vietnam there. And that builds on a lot of the aviation work that we've done in Vietnam and a lot of the relationships that were built because of their relationships through the Foreign Commercial Service and the embassy team in Hanoi. That had been built over, over about 15 years' time, and those relationships also resulted in, I know Vietnam just a few years ago having direct flights to the U.S. as well, and part of that, our assistance was involved in that too. So one concrete example with the U.S. firm, Asian-owned company, and certainly looking to do more that type of work as well. Sorry, Asian American-owned company. So.
Thanks. Professor Ms. Van, if you have an example you'd like to share of a success story.
Yes, of course. I would like to share the experience with organizing the Select USA in May this year. So we have a group of more than 30 people from more than 20 companies, Vietnamese companies, to come to the U.S. to find the opportunity for invest into the U.S. So at the beginning of the Select USA week, we organize, we cooperate with the DOC to organize a group meeting event, the breaking events for the whole group. And we invite Madam Marisa Lago, the Undersecretary of Commerce and of International Trade. So she spent about 1 hour to listen to each participant from every company, what the area that they are looking at, what need you want the DOC could help you, and what is the problem that you are dealing with, and what is the connect that you want the DOC help you to do business in the U.S. So I think it is a very, very important at the beginning of the week, so they know who they could contact with and what is the contact person at the DOC. And also at the end of that week, we organize another reception. So with the participant of another Deputy Undersecretary of the International Trade in the DOC, Madam Diane Farrell, and with the participant of many other U.S. government, the Treasury Department, the Energy Department, and representative from the state that their investment is already in. For example, in North Carolina for VinFast, in South Carolina for the Inline Group. So, and we also include the U.S. Ambassador to Vietnam, Mr. Mark Napper, and the Vietnam Ambassador to the U.S., Mr. Dũng, and representative from the USTR and many other people. Also, we invite the existing Vietnamese investor to the U.S., so they have the chance to share experience with the new investors, the newcomer. So I think the feedback is very positive, that they have a chance to make a networking with the existing investor, with the law firm in the U.S., with the current Vietnamese investor, and as well as the state representative, as well as the federal representative. And after the two meetings, we also have a follow-up, so they can fill in the form that what they need to the embassy do for them, make connection with the bank, with the investment fund, for example, with the consulting firm, with the law firm, and also what the partner that they are looking for to make the connection. And actually after that, now they inform us that 2 of them have a partner to do a joint venture in the US. It's a very concrete example of what we can help the Vietnamese investor to do business in the US. But in the vice versa for the business mission to Vietnam, we can do the same as the network in Vietnam for the embassy is wider than the network in the US. So we can do the same for the US investor to do business in Vietnam as well.
Okay, thank you.
So my example is very quick, but it actually is a cybersecurity company that my colleague Pompea Lambrecht worked with by the name of SyncDog here in Northern Virginia. They went to the RSA conference a couple of years ago, and at every RSA conference in San Francisco, they took advantage of the networking opportunities that we had where we brought in commercial specialists from various countries overseas to meet one-on-one with the US exhibitors. He met with the commercial specialists from our US Embassy in Singapore, learned about the market opportunities there, and after RSA conference went back and did a Gold Key service with us, which is our matchmaking service for US companies. Our commercial specialist at the US Embassy in Singapore set up meetings for him with potential resellers and partners in the country. And as a result of those meetings, he signed a partnership in Singapore and is now doing business very successfully in Singapore. So started at just a meeting at our office, went to a trade show in San Francisco, went on an overseas trip to Singapore, and all along the journey, we were walking right alongside of him. So hope we can do that for your company in the near future.
Whip it out. And now for Select USA is very similar to with April's as well. It's the idea of sort of going along the ideal client journey is that with the Southeast Asian coffee company who had never entered the United States before, had really no idea where to begin. And the first sort of engagement we typically have with clients like these are through these research reports. And they had no idea where to look. They looked at the clusters where similarly other companies that also produce coffee roasters were based. They looked at these 3 states that apparently indicate that they have high concentration for coffee roasters. And they said, okay, Alex, we like these 3. Now what do we do? Then facilitate introductions with them on these calls, and then we sit on the calls with the EDOs and them. We're almost like, we're the third-party validator almost. We sit with them, we're almost like on their side in a way. So also walking them through that, and also we have our commercial specialists sometimes as well, helping translate depending on whether the client speaks English or not, which is also an incredible testament to this, their skills, specialists on the ground also at our embassies overseas. And after these meetings, and it's the great part of working with clients and seeing the enthusiasm the economic development that the states have for these companies, to almost watch them like compete against each other to try to attract these companies to their state. And at this stage too is the best part because you can actually see the company, even though we don't particularly give business advice at this stage to tell them who to pick or one state or the other, sort of walk them through what makes sense in terms of connecting them maybe with a service provider who help them walk through maybe the next step with visas, with taxes, with other market entry services, and frankly they're currently operating in Louisiana. I can't reveal too much because all business confidential, like any interaction that we'll have, if you're interested in working Select USA, all these are business confidential as well. But the ideal client experience would be this research report, connect with the EDOs, have this conversation with EDOs, and we'll be there with you, and then hopefully at the very end, sort of, the shining moment when you're able to pick one and sort of commit, and then obviously go through the process with the states, iron out this investment.
Excellent. Those are excellent examples. Thank you very much. I'm just going to ask you a quick question from our 2 Department of Commerce colleagues, because I'm not sure what the answer is. I know in terms of fees and how do you engage and whether there's cost for these services, I know the Gold Key that you mentioned, the service overseas, there's a fee for that, for the partner search and other advice. Are there any fees for the local, for you, April, domestically, working with the USAX for the U.S.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So Congress does require us to recover our costs whenever we provide a customized service to a company. But that being said, we have a lot of our services are free. So the trade counseling, the setting up the MS Teams call with the US Embassy so you can get some advice. All of that is free. The meetings at the trade show that I mentioned earlier that SyncDog did, that was free. So we have a lot of free services, our advocacy services, where if you're bidding on a foreign, a public sector tender overseas and you're encountering foreign competition and you'd like the US government to advocate on your behalf, that is free. So we have a lot of free services that we provide to companies. We do offer some fee-based services that are cost recovery services that Congress requires us to recover our costs. For the Gold Key, which is that day of meetings in Singapore I mentioned earlier, where the US Embassy sets up meetings with decision makers for you. For a small business, that's $950. And fees are a little higher if you're a large company. But I will say, again, we have connections to state and local resources that can help you offset those costs. So, for example, the state of Virginia has STEP grant funding that can sometimes offset your costs for the Gold Key service. So again, we work as a team and we're bringing to bear to that equation everything we can to support your business. But great question.
The Select State services are free, so it's the, I can also testify that the companies that use the Gold Key services that April is using, it's well worth the bang for your buck for that, the companies I've engaged with. But Select State services are free.
Excellent. And I guess along the same lines, Miranda, I know your events are very modestly priced, if at all, to go for these business briefings and things you do with the delegations. Do you want to, if companies are looking at going overseas and using your, the technical assistance or feasibility study approach to get into these markets, do you want to just touch on the cost sharing,
Sure.
sort of aspect of the sole source?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what Doug is referring to, we do have a couple of models that we do our feasibility studies and our grant assistance. One is just competed, and that is of no cost to the U.S. company. These are, we may be working with the Ministry of Energy and they want to work with the U.S. company and they don't know who to work with, and so we help them compete to find a U.S. firm that they select to do the feasibility study and technical assistance, and that is at no cost to the U.S. firm. They just get paid for the cost of doing the actual study or technical assistance. The other way that we do our work is on a what we call a sole source basis. So this is not competed, and it's when a U.S. firm comes to us and they say, we already have this relationship with the Ministry of Energy, we want to do a feasibility study with them. Will USCDA help us offset that cost? And so we do it in partnership, so there is a cost share expectation from the U.S. firm that they put in some skin into the game, especially because we're not competing it and opening it up to all U.S. firms, that there is that expectation. That cost share ranges, and there's a lot of things that we consider in terms of the size of the company, if they're going to win, additional business as a result of the study and things like that too. So that does require a cost share. And at times, if there's a vendor, so if it's a company that's selling something into the market, we may have a success fee agreement too, to say, if you're successful, which we hope you are, and you get significant revenue, we will take a percentage of that revenue just to recover our costs too. And this is like people congressionally mandated to do for some of our grants assistance as well. But that's a case-by-case basis too, and I'm happy to explore more if you're interested in those services.
Excellent. Thank you, Brenda. Okay, well, we have a little time left. How much time, Sean?
Just 1 more minute.
Okay, so I have more questions, but I want to open it up to the audience. There's a lot of folks here that may have questions. Does anyone have a question for any of the panelists? Yeah.
My question to Ms. Lee from Vietnam Embassy is, for foreign investors to buy land in Vietnam, is there any restrictions? Like we have restrictions in Florida for people from Republic of China to buy land in Florida. So is there any restrictions for foreign investors to buy land to develop anything in Vietnam? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have any restriction in terms of the nationality of the foreign investor. But we, in Vietnam, nobody can own the land. But we have when you rent the land, you have a file right. You can transfer. You can you pay the rent and you transfer the land, and you can develop any facility based on the land. So you have file right. It's very, very similar that you actually own the land. But in terms of the law terms, we can buy or sell the land for anybody, even the Vietnamese citizen. But we don't have any discrimination in terms of the nationality of the foreign investor. So U.S. investor, Chinese investor, European investor, they have the same right in terms of access to the land.
Is that like a 99-year lease arrangement?
Normally for the foreign firm in Vietnam, you can access to the land for 50 years, and for the special project, you can have access to the land and you can have it for 70 years.
Okay, the other question is related to that geographically for anywhere that close to the government-owned facilities. So anybody can buy anything close by, or there's some specific requirements that or restriction that you cannot buy anything close to government facility, like some Navy base or anything, or airport, close to the airport.
Yes, in every provinces. Also in Vietnam, we have 63 provinces, and in each provinces we have the master plan for land use. So based on the master plan, you can see where you can access to and where you not have the right to access to. Close to the Navy facility, to the Army facility, or close to the government facility. Yeah, so we have a master plan, so you know at the beginning that what area you can access to.
Great, thank you, thanks.
Okay, I think we need that. Okay, I'll just speak up. Oh, so I think we've run out of time on the indicator from the back. So again, thank you very much for all the panelists for coming.